This is my China. My China moves so quickly. I've never known time to go as fast as it does since I came to China. It's always interesting. Every day is different. The people are friendly, and the people I work with, they're fun to be with. So I have no complaints about the 12 years I've been in China.
The working day is beginning for Edwin Ma at China Central Television's headquarters in East Beijing.
Ni hao, I'm Edwin Ma, CCTV news anchor. How are you?
It's a scene he has repeated countless times in the past decade.
3、2、1，嘴卷。 主人声音吹起来。
China says gun
条。
discrimination are rampant in the United States. In a report on the human rights situation in the country, discrimination are rampant.
The New Zealand-born media professional is a popular and highly respected member of staff at CCTV.
I think the best way to describe him is he's an old man with a really young heart. It's like if you just talk to him, you don't see his face, you just have a conversation with him. It's like he's in his early 20s. You can joke with him like he's one of your peers and not someone much older. He has the authority, but also a young man's passion and sort of friendliness at the same time.
Well, Edwin is one of those kind of people that you really want in the newsroom. He brings the best of both worlds, experience and professionalism. And beyond that, most importantly, in the high-pressure environment that we work in, he brings a fantastic nature. He brings his good humor to it. He's the kind of guy you can walk up to, joke around with, and yet learn from. A role model, not just in terms of his good nature, but also in terms of his experience and professionalism. That is Edwin Ma.
Now for something completely different. Here I go with highs and lows for another exciting weather show. Maps all drawn, pointer ready. That's why I'm called Fast Eddie. I can feel a cold front coming through, and there's nothing much that I can do. Your weekend's gonna be ruined, but it's not my fault. No, it's not. It's not my fault.
Stuff, isn't it?
In 1979, Edwin Ma began a long stint as a weatherman with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. He became a household name in Melbourne because of his use of various imaginative pointers when delivering the ABC's Victorian state weather forecasts.
It's terrific, doesn't it? How do I do it, I hear you say? I'm blowed if I know.
He gave up the job in 1999 to take care of his wife, who was seriously ill.
They would have given me a pointer, wouldn't you? Well, they have.
Ma decided to move to China on a whim after his wife passed away. He knew little about the country at the time. What he craved was a change of environment at a particularly low point in his life.
Hi, ni hao. How much?
A job advertised by China Radio International brought him here in May 2003. A year later, he was approached by then director of CCTV's English channel, Jiang Heping, to become one of its first Western anchors. It was a groundbreaking move by CCTV at the time when it was rapidly expanding its English language broadcasting and attempting to make it more professional and accessible to Western audiences.
Edwin Ma was among the first foreign anchors at CCTV. When I first initiated such a proposal to the top executive of CCTV, I was instructed to have a try. And then we looked for the feedback from the viewers. And the result actually was very well received among the viewers. And we received a lot of emails and even some calls from the viewers about CCTV's initiative to have foreign anchors.
Probably some tea.
In Beijing, Ma was initially surprised to find more similarities than differences with the life he was used to. He has also been surprised by how much the Chinese media have changed over the past decade.
Okay, when I first arrived at CCTV, as it was called in the old days, CCTV 9, the English channel of CCTV, the news gathering organisation was quite small. Some of the bulletins were repeated as distinct from going to air live. But in the past 12 years or so, I've noticed a huge change. More people have arrived from many parts of the world as anchors, as copy editors, as reporters even. And all the bulletins, most of the bulletins now are broadcast live. We have breaking news. We have everything that any major international news organisation has.
Off-screen, life for Edwin Ma is healthy and happy. Being granted a Chinese green card has helped him feel more settled.
You're watching My China.
After work, Ma heads back to the Beijing Friendship Hotel in the northwest of the city. He has called the hotel home ever since he first came to China.
Hi, welcome to my apartment at the Friendship Hotel, the Beijing Friendship Hotel, which is a very famous place, an iconic hotel in Beijing, built for the Russian experts in the 1950s. But I've lived in maybe 4 different apartments in this building, because when I first came here in 23, it used to be compulsory if you worked in the media to live at the Youyi Bingguan, as it's called in Chinese. But 1 year later they changed the rules and you could live anywhere in the city. But me and a couple of others have chosen to remain here. Some of the apartments I had were much older than this one, but I prefer the one I have now because it faces the sun. I get the winter sun coming in, and it's always very warm during the cold months of the year, and it's cool in the summertime. But it's a place that I've come to call home. I've got many reminders of my family here. I've got lots of photographs of the people that are first and foremost in my life. Where do I start? But this is the home actually that I grew up in New Zealand, in a town called Levin, which is north of the capital city, Wellington. So that was home for me when I was a young boy. Then, of course, having lived in Australia for many years, seems like I've had many lives, but in Australia we had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and of course they're all grown up now and married. I have 5 grandchildren. My oldest son, Andrew, has 3 boys, and this is Cooper, Darcy and Marshall. So they're very lively young boys who live in Melbourne. My daughter Elizabeth has 2 children, a little boy and a little girl. They're very, very active. And this is a family reunion of the Chinese family, and when my younger son Adrian and my daughter Elizabeth came over to China in 2003, they met the Chinese family for the first time. So it was a very happy evening that we spent together. When I was growing up in New Zealand, I loved listening to the radio. I always enjoyed listening to the radio. It's something that played a very important part of my life. But I've got some original radios that I bought here in Beijing. This one is a replica actually of a European model. As you can see, it's got here 1959, so I think that's the model that it's made of, or made about. This one here is much more modern in its manufacture. It's only about 4 years old, but it looks like an old radio that was originally made in Australia. And I bought this. It's made by a company in Shenzhen, and I hope to visit them one day, but this is the oldest of them all. I've found it very hard to actually identify where it is originally from, but it is a valve radio, and it's got a picture of a Shanghai lady, a postcard there on the top. So this one might be worth a little bit of money. I don't know how much, but they all go, they all work, and that's part of the hobby that I've always had, listening to the radio. Okay, let's see if one of them works. We'll try this one. No problem. It works well. I have a small kitchen here in which I enjoy cooking. I can cook some Chinese dishes, simple ones I guess, but they're always very tasty and very enjoyable. But I've got several recipe books, of course, which take me back to the old days of when I was growing up in New Zealand. And these are some of the more familiar dishes that I remember my mother used to cook. And this is called the Edmonds Cookbook. Every house in New Zealand still has, I think, an Edmonds cookery book. And how cheery.
The piano is a loyal companion for Ma, particularly in his more nostalgic moments.
I've been associated with the piano all my life because when I was growing up in New Zealand, my mother was a piano teacher. She was a very good pianist. She won a scholarship to go to study at the Chicago Conservatorium of Music in the United States. So she could play really well. And she started me off as a young boy learning the piano when I was 7 or 8 years old. But even before that, I could play a little bit. I learned many pieces, of course. Traditional composers were the main meat in the sandwich, if I can put it like that. And one of them was a piece that I really don't like at all, but I'm sure many of you would know it if I can remember part of it. From time to time I write my own music, or I improvise on a well-known piece of music. So these are just little bits and pieces, and really I can't play much at all but just make a few sounds with the chords, just something like that. So just anything at all that I can move around playing gives me some pleasure. There are many tunes, of course, that I like, and from Australia there's this one which many people would know. So hopefully in the future I might be able to learn some popular Chinese music. That would really make my repertoire complete.
His years in China have contained many memorable days and yielded many proud moments.
Well, one of the most exciting days of my life was when I was chosen among 23 foreigners to appear in the special military parade which took place here in Beijing and went through Tiananmen Square on the 1st of October 2009 to mark the 60th anniversary of the founding of the PRC. That was our special float of about 23 different foreigners, and we received a rousing reception like all the different people in the parade. It was a wonderful day.
In 2007, Ma was presented with the Friendship Award, the highest honor for a foreign expert can earn in China. In his everyday life, he tries to live up to the spirit of the award, being pleasant to people around him and always ready to help.
我在友谊宾馆一直从事外国专家的服务接待工作，和埃德温先生已经有10几年的交情。埃德温是一个非常随和、平易近人的人，在友谊宾馆他的知名度非常高。 无论从总经理还是到普通的员工，都是他的朋友。因为我们是外事宾馆，经常要给一些外宾出一些这个通告、警告，宾馆的宣传等等。所以我们好多需要译成英文的东西呢，都会找到埃德温先生。每次找到他。 他都是非常愉快的答应，而且非常认真的为我们这个校对和这个润色。
In 2012, I was very fortunate to receive a Chinese green card. So to get Chinese permanent residence isn't so easy. I think there are 361,000 foreigners who have this green card, but this is mine, and I received it at a ceremony at the Public Security Bureau in Anchorman. It gives you a feeling of being permanent here in this country because you don't have to renew your visa every year. You can go to the railway station and you don't have to show your passport. You can use your green card just like any other Chinese citizen. And it's great when you're leaving the airport to go out of the country. You don't have to fill in the departure card or the incoming card, and you can go in the same line as the Chinese nationals and go through very, very quickly. It's a good thing to have.
Ma reflects on such happy occasions along with some embarrassing moments in his book, Caught on CCTV.
While I've been in China, I've written 2 books. The first one came out in 2007. It was called Jiao Jiao Bei, which means which way is the north. And it's been reprinted a few times, but just this year my second book appeared, and that's called Jiao Jiao Bei, which means I've found the north. But its English title is called Caught on CCTV. And I think that that's a very common phrase in the West, because if you go through a red light and you're driving a car, you might go home to your spouse and say, "Oh dear, I'm so sorry, I think I'm going to have to pay a big fine." Why? Because I was caught on CCTV going through a red light. But anyway, that's a play on words, because as we all know, CCTV in China doesn't refer to red lights, it refers to Zhongyang Denchitai China Central Television, and I've been working there for 11 years now. It is a long time, but this book tells my story there and before I came to China, and brings everybody up to the present day.
Edwin has long been known for his humor, and you can experience that in his book Here and There. He is also a master of words. The challenge for me was to turn his humor into equally humorous Chinese text. And I had long talks with him on the internet. I asked him all sorts of questions, and I was able to turn them into proper Chinese with those humors in it.
Although now in his 70s, Ma still enjoys good health. In the past decade, he has suffered nothing worse than a cold on 1 or 2 occasions. He ascribes this to his daily exercise routine, which includes a brisk 40-minute walk and gymnastics in the public recreation areas.
One of my best friends in Beijing is this, my trusty bike. I've had this since 2008 when my younger son Adrian came over to Beijing for the Olympic Games, and as a farewell gift he bought me this bike. It's fairly basic, but I've had no problems with it, and I just love riding it around Beijing. Sometimes I go out as far as the Western Hills. It takes maybe 2 hours of riding before I get there. And I like finding all kinds of new and exciting destinations in different parts and around different parts of the city. There are some beautiful areas of Beijing away from the built-up parts of the city. So this is what I depend on for my recreation. You're watching My China.
For Edwin Ma, some of his happiest moments in Beijing are spent with his Chinese family and friends.
Ma has his very own Chinese family in Beijing. Although they are not blood relations, they have become an important part of his life.
Oh my God! Oh!
Long time no see.
Long time no see. Yeah, Xudong, hi. Xu Zhang.
How are you doing?
I'm very well. When did you get here?
Just last week.
Ah, well, this is my Chinese son, Rain. He's back in China. He teaches in the United States at Arizona State University, and he's here for the summer holidays. So it's
Summer break.
Summer break.
3 months.
3 months. Some people
Just
have
me,
it.
right?
Some people have it easy. But this is Xu Zhang's gender father, gender baba, his real father, Xudong Hai.
It's not real.
你是徐峥的假的 father.
Yeah, father. 明白.
It's my Australian dad.
Yeah,
So you want to go somewhere?
Ma met Xu Zheng, his Chinese son, quite by chance, less than a year after his arrival in Beijing.
Conversation about your mobile.
He was looking lost outside the Big Bell Temple when this young man approached him and offered to help. Xu then invited Ma to his home. Communication was awkward, as Xu's parents could speak little English. The Chinese father, Xu Donghai, broke the ice by starting to sing. Ma joined in, and they continue this form of communication still today.
用他的话来说，我们是他的中国家人，像一家人在一起一样。他的儿子和女儿来中国都要到我们家来一起玩。艾德文是个对工作非常认真的人，在我们家的时候，临走的时候，每天8点半必须要回友谊宾馆，因为他第二天要工作。每天在我们家里看那个 email， 明天什么时候工作。他是一个对生活充满激情的人，自己天南海北的满洲石家庄、北戴河，我们都不可能去的地儿，他自己都走遍了。所以这一块我们特别欣赏他。
Clashes between their different cultures and habits, more often than not, lead to laughter rather than frustration.
Well, Rain, I brought you something back from Australia because I was there not long ago. I hope you like it.
What? A string hat? That's not for me.
Problem?
Well, it's kind of hard to say, but it's all about life cheating things. It's not for me.
Oh, it means.
But it's a nice hat.
It means your wife is cheating on you.
Oh,
If it's green, does it?
probably.
I didn't know that. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So it's Australian national color?
Yes, Australian national colour.
Green and gold.
Another chance meeting around 10 years ago has also led to a lasting friendship. This one happened during an afternoon stroll of Ma's in a park. He heard a young man reading English on the bench. Ma went close to him, saying hello, and got to know his name was He Bin. He Bin at that time was working as a cook in a restaurant. Ma was impressed by his determination to learn English. He told Ma that he had a dream, which was one day to open a restaurant of his own. Their friendship developed to the extent that He Bin invited him to his hometown in a remote village in southwest China's Sichuan province, 32 hours away by train. Ma was the first foreign visitor the village had ever welcomed. He spent 4 days and nights in a house with no glass windows or covered floors and surrounded by pigs and cows. But the warmth of the family's hospitality more than made up for the discomfort. Today, Ma is paying He Bin another visit. Years after their first meeting in the park, has He's dream of having his own restaurant come true?
This is your dream come true.
Yes.
You have your own restaurant.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
okay. Listen here.
Yeah.
I can have my lunch here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He Bin personally cooks a meal for his elderly foreign friend. The restaurant serves mainly spicy Sichuan-style food. Still, Ma is very fond of the home-style cooking.
跟艾德文交往了这么多年，不光是学到了语言，更主要在他身上学到了平等待人、热情的精神。像他这么家喻户晓的大人物，对我特别热情友善，从不挑剔，值得我跟他好好学习。
I think there's a picture of me with these over my back.
Yes.
When I first came to China, I always thought the world is a small place. You can get anywhere where you want to relatively quickly. And my children live in Melbourne in Australia. And we had a bit of a farewell with a few tears coming down when I came here. But that's 12 years ago. I always told them I might wake up one day and decide I've had enough of China, I'm going back. But that's 12 years ago when I said that, and it hasn't happened yet. So I think that shows that I've become quite used to the way of life here. I've made a lot of friends, and the idea of leaving China is something I don't think about, because my home, in a way, is really here. So I'm happy to be living here. I'm happy to be working here. I'm happy just being in China and exploring the country. So that day when I said I might wake up and just want to go home hasn't happened yet. And it may never happen. Maybe this is where I'm destined to be.
12 years have come and gone. Edwin Ma has personally witnessed many changes that have taken place in China. With living not on his radar, he's looking forward to exploring more of this country.